That's better. All right. So, all right. I remembered another thing about Inmendham's thing. So Inmendham's going like, he was saying, why do the double? I answered a commenter in one of his videos. Why do about? I said he was saying an alternate way to set up the do slit, and I said, why not use particles other than photons? And then I cited a somebody talking about an experiment, diffraction with neutrons. Okay, which is interesting, should be interesting to Gary. Interesting, meaning the technical term. It's like it's obviously materially relevant, the fact that it has no charge. Given the way Gary is describing the interaction of the photon and electrons in a way that does not seem to include some seeing that pattern, which he also misstates. But and we're really this is interesting and sad for me because it really shows Gary's techniques when he's doing this with mathematics and he's just ignoring some question because of some triviality, like was that green or blue? But are you talking about fucking blue? And just ignoring the question. And the chance of it being just like, I don't get it. No, it doesn't look that way. When it's math, it's a little clear how things work. Like when I'm saying, hey, you can choose either velocity. If you don't think the galactic velocity is reliable, let's do it with the Earth around the sun velocity. And he's not getting any of that. It's like his comprehension is way less than I thought for all these years of arguing other things and politics and stuff. And the techniques that I see in this subject matter, I had just thought were um, like cognitive issues with misunderstanding what was going on. No, it's not a misunderstanding. It's a tactic. Anyway, why do the double slit with other particles? Okay, let's see. I'll go through the notes I put up as in the description. I probably already covered them, but some of them. But the fact that light does all the wave behaviors, it diffracts, it reflects, it refracts, that makes it wave light. That's what you need to understand. That was noticed at the macroscopic level. Things that do diffract, that's wave-like, right? Bullets don't diffract, particles don't diffract. Now, the fact that they're also particles, that's that whole, wow, we're all blown away by this wave-particle duality. But at the macroscopic level, things, the way prisms work, the fact that when you shoot it through a slit, it spreads out, that's not something ordinary bullet particles or billiard balls do. They bounce off each other, and that's well covered. Those are called elastic collisions, and we use those a lot. Or non-elastic collisions for that matter, right? That's Newtonian mechanics covers that pretty well at non-relativistic speeds anyway. So pause the video and bitch about the idea of non-relativistic speeds for a bit. The fact that light does all these wave phenomena, diffracts, and I believe that was the one that was considered conclusive, but it reflects and refracts. Now, a collision or an elastic collision is similar to reflection, obviously. It's not the same thing, though, because there's a whole mathematical sets of equations and they're different. And one involves frequency domain stuff, and the other one just involves basic Newtonian vector calculations. So that's one thing you need to understand, though, is why would we do the double slit with other particles is because we expect light to be wave-like. Maybe not before we did this experiment because it was a debate, but after the experiment, it's like, okay, we're getting used to, let me put it that way, wave light doing that. But if you do it with particles like electrons and neutrons that you didn't expect to be wave-like, that's interesting. So Gary's like, but it's a better picture with photons. Yeah, but a picture with photons is not a replacement for the picture with every other particle. And right now they're trying to put organic molecules and stuff through. So number two is we don't expect other particles to act that way. So that's a main reason we would do it. Now I'm getting into why I brought it up. Two slits is about the fact, by the way, that if if you sent a wave through two slits, you expect the interference pattern. That's classical wave mechanics. And Huygens, you might think because he likes waves, it was way hundreds of years before quantum mechanics. He was just solving the problem of why does a wave propagate in a line? Why, if you drop, a pebble, why does it keep going kind of things? Well, this is how, and you can use this calculation method that every part of the wave that's wiggling is like dropping a pebble right there. A little tiny pixel-sized pebble, really tiny, all next to each other so that it ripples out. Anyway, it's just a way of doing the math of circles, overlapping, adding up overlapping circles. Way before quantum mechanics. There's a wave mathematics that was figured out, patterns of waves, which is what mathematics is, and it happens to be a different set of pattern than the old rectilinear approach of the vector mechanics of Newton, which are also quite useful because it's like one is this particulate phenomena and one is this frequency domain wave phenomena. The waves need a medium. And light does have a medium. It's not the ether they wanted to find, it's the electromagnetic field. And why is that? Well, because if I take a bunch of electrons in an antenna and switch it a magnet so they all go up and down, it sends off a ripple. What's it a ripple of? It's a ripple of the electric force being let go where it drops down and creates a magnetic and then electric force, and they zips off like a little rubber band kind of ripple in this electromagnetic field or space or whatever it's made of. So why, if once you have figured out light down to one particle, they can create a laser and then turn it on low enough that instead of sending out a lot of photons, it sends out photons one at a time. And they can have a screen on the other side of the slits and see it blink one at a time. That pretty much shows it's particulate in some sense. But when it all fills in, you see the wave math patterns. So yeah, it's odd. I don't think it takes woo-woo to explain at all. I think that, in fact, whatever it turns out to be is not going to count as woo-woo. I mean, if it's a bunch of turtles on each other's backs, then that won't be woo-woo. But I don't expect it's that. But I do think that human beings might not automatically find it easy to understand. Go figure. We're not all as genius as you think we are. You know, bacterias with brains. But the universe has to make common sense, dude, and be intuitive. I don't get where you think that. Number 4, most important final thing. The reason I bring it up is you describe the patterns of light through slits in relation to the interaction between the electrons and the photons and what I'm going to call their ton flux, right? But it's very much about electrons and photons. That's where the familiarity hooks in. Okay, neutrons are neutral, so I thought you ought to consider, well, what if there is no little charge, no little electrons don't like each other, blah, 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 how magnets hook together. These are neutral. Okay, so, and you're going to go, fuck you, fuck you. No, I'm doing you a favor. Nobody else wants to respond except for me and Heithel today, and you are bitches about it, and then people, and you're blocking in your channel, and you're like, well, what do you ever make? And like, you don't give any respect to the people that do make you video replies and stand by what they said. So, what the hell are you trying to bitch at other people for whether they do or not? It's ridiculous how you're acting, Gary. You're making a fool of yourself. There's no need for you to be that way. On the other hand, I don't care if you make a fool of yourself. I'm kind of finding it interesting going through and explaining things like your little light tube. Like it sounds like you think maybe God gets in there. Maybe it's oh, that's not fair, right? That's just for you to accuse other people. Well, what have you. Um, explaining simple physical things while you just talk nonsense is, I think, interesting. I think it's one way of talking basic physics to make basic physics more interesting if you have somebody that doesn't believe in it. But you need to do your laser experiment. Because here's the other thing. If you have it a certain length, it doesn't matter what deflection, which velocity you believe in, right? We're shooting through space at some speed, right? And your laser, and it's at least the speed of the Earth around the sun. It's at least 1/10,000th. And your laser experiment will show exactly what it is. Throughout the day, the laser dot will move some amount. If it doesn't really move much, then you can go, see, it's only 1,000 of a million of a 6,666,000. Whatever. Just put the laser up 24 hours a day, hitting a board as far away or mirrored as you can do it, and boom, film it. It's so fucking hard about that. Scared? Scared? Mm. Come on, Gary.